Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mortgage Pro Talk. This is Deep Dive, where every week I dive deep with mortgage professionals and leaders, discussing their journey to where they are now and what they've learned along the way. My name is Dan Cooley, and I am thrilled to be joined by Jennifer Burnett, who is an originating branch manager at Princeton Mortgage. Jennifer, how are you doing today?
Hey Dan, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate. You're like I've heard about you so much, and it's so nice to finally get to have a conversation with you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. I hope you heard all good things.
All good, nothing bad. Um, so you're Why don't we just kind of like start from the top? Where are you based out of right now? Like, where do you live right now?
So I live in the South Hills of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Our office is in South Point. I was originally born here, but then when I was about 6 months old, my father had a job transfer, and we moved around a bit to New York, and then landed in Massachusetts, where ultimately I grew up.
Interesting. So you were born in Pittsburgh, grew up in Massachusetts. What led you back to Pittsburgh? How'd you end up
Family.
back? Like, what made you go back?
So my dad retired, and our whole family, my parents are from Pittsburgh originally. We just wanted to be back close with family, so we relocated back here. I briefly moved down to Atlanta, Georgia on my own after graduating college, but ended up back here as well. They joke and say you can leave Pittsburgh, but you always come back. And I have to say, my life is a true testament of that.
But so this is completely random and kind of weird. I love Pittsburgh, and I've never been to Pittsburgh. I don't know why I feel this way. At some point, I don't know. Like I remember it since I was a kid. So my guess is, you know
The
how like this kind of
Steelers
happens.
in the
It
70s.
wasn't even anything. I don't. I have nothing. I have no like. It's not like I can go. Oh, I was a huge Pirates fan, so that's why nothing. I have no connections to Pittsburgh, and yet I must have done like a report or something. Like, you know how you do random reports
Yes.
when you're a little kid. I must have done one on Pittsburgh because I have this like when I hear anything good in Pittsburgh, I'm like happy for Pittsburgh, and I don't know why. So
Well,
there you
that's
go. That's like
awesome. I mean,
so
I
maybe
will
I'll.
tell you, the people here are unique. They're very kind. Like as a group as a whole, they're very kind and friendly and helpful. It's a great city. It's big enough to have culture and sports and all of these different things, but small enough that it's great to raise a family, and it's just awesome here. We love it.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. Well, there you go. This has been Pittsburgh hour we just start a random podcast about Pittsburgh. That'd be cool. So, all right. So you moved to Massachusetts. What was your childhood like? What was it like growing up as a young Jennifer Burnett?
It was fun. I did grow up an only child. I have a very, very close relationship with my parents. I had it then, I still have it today. Um, but I dabbled in every athletic sport pretty much. I also took some dance, did some cheerleading. Um, but yeah, it was a very happy childhood. Tough growing up as an only child from time to time, but again, I'm thankful because I have such a close knit relationship with with my parents.
That's really great to hear. What was difficult about growing up as an only child? Do you think?
Just sometimes, you want that young person to play with or hang out with or be on vacation with, and it's just you.
That makes sense. That makes absolute sense. And do you happen to remember what you wanted to be, like the first thing you remember wanting to be when you grew up?
So the first thing, oh, I gotta think back on this, that I wanted to be that I recall was an architect. I used to have a little notepad and draw houses, and I loved playing with Legos. And I was more of, I'll build what the book tells me to, but then I'm going to tear it down and build something like freehand. So I definitely, that was the first thing I recollect. But as you grow up and gain life experience, that changes, you know?
Without a doubt. But that's such a cool. Well, first of all, houses. There's a house
Oh, well, yeah,
theme,
okay.
so that's pretty cool. And I think also I love that. I love the idea of. So I've two kids. I have a 1-year-old and a 3.5-year-old. I feel like they get a lot of play on this podcast. I'm starting to realize.
Oh, I love it.
And my son is that same type of always like trying to figure out new structures, new things. I think there's a cool. I don't know. It does. A different part of your brain is working that I think is. How do things work together and how do they not work together? And so that's very, very cool. I can officially say we're a pro Lego podcast. So Lego, if you're listening to this and you want to throw free kits at me and Jennifer for this podcast or Pittsburgh Pals, which is our new Pittsburgh podcast we'll be releasing.
Still love playing Legos to this day. My daughter, huge Lego.
Oh, that's awesome.
Builder.
Yeah, and Lego, I mean, talk about... They've come a long way from a couple of blocks. They're like, oh, you want to build the Death Star from Star Wars? You got it. Full size.
Great.
That's all right. So you want to be an architect. You're drawing things. How do we go from there to here? What was your kind of career journey like that led to where you are today?
Well, I pivoted away from architect, in all honesty, when I was embarking on college, and I thought maybe I want to be a lawyer. I'm not really sure where that came from, other than, I am opinionated and I'm passionate about getting people to see my opinion. So maybe it was a play off that. I'm not really sure. At the end of the day, I went as a freshman into college and I pivoted towards business and finance. So graduated college and definitely remember very vividly that fear of, now what? I'm an adult. I have to get into the real world. I have to make money. Like, what happens now? How does that work? So I had an internship later in college that I just actually stayed there out of comfort. And it was more in retail sales. And I was getting really burnt out on retail. I had relocated to Atlanta, Georgia at that point, and I was just putting out feelers on Monster, if you remember, putting your resume out on Monster.
Sure.
And I came across this opportunity, no experience necessary, must have a college degree, and it was in the mortgage industry. So I went and interviewed, and it sounded really intriguing. I always liked working with numbers and getting things figured out, problem solving. So I started with that company, and essentially it just took off from there. I never really got out of that. I kept going with it until 2008.
And yeah. And what so you're in the mortgage industry. Were you doing like loan origination then, or were you
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so okay. They had, this company had a whole program. So like I said, no experience necessary. So they had a whole 2-week training program. They taught us all the wonderful verbiage and acronyms, LTV, DTI, all that fun stuff. And then we graduated to a dialer, a phone dialer, where it would call leads and you had to pitch them, on if it made sense for them to refinance and looking into a refinance. And then you would graduate from that position to an actual loan originator, where you'd be originating loans. It wasn't, that I could only originate refi. We were able to do purchase activity, but predominantly I did start out in the business as a refinance loan officer.
And then you said, so until 2008, obviously 2008 happens, the whole world kind of shakes, and what was the journey like kind of coming through 2008? Did you ever consider going into a different direction career-wise at that point?
I actually did, Dan. And that was one of the biggest challenges, I'd say, in my overall career is, I'm young. I'm trying to gain independence, financially sound, stability. And you're in an industry that was extremely volatile. Companies were closing, companies were laying off left and right. They were changing commission structures. And I was young enough at the time that I started to question and reconsider. And I had the opportunity to get into a business to business sales position with a local company. And I did that. And it was, stability. It was, I was able to gain financial independence at that stage. It was very rewarding in all of those ways, what I was lacking in 2008 in the mortgage industry. But at the end of the day, I was very unfulfilled. At the end of the day, who was I helping? What was I contributing to? What was I changing? I felt very empty. And, I wasn't very happy at that time. So I was starting to put the feelers out to maybe transition into something else. And by chance, I came across this opportunity to end back in the mortgage industry, which is also another saying that you can leave, but you always come back. And it just hit me at the right time where, again, I was in a position that I could take that leap. And I knew at that moment I was missing something. And I always felt fulfilled in the mortgage industry because at the end of the day, with a refinance, you're helping put someone in a better financial position. Or with a purchase, you're helping someone realize the American dream and purchase their first home or their investment property or their second home or their downsizing home. And it was so fulfilling. So I got back in 2012, September 2012, and I haven't looked back since.
That's awesome. I think, one of the questions I was going to sort of ask later, but I think now's the time is when people ask me or someone just entering the workforce or just leaving college or just starting to think in that way, I actually taught acting for many, many years. So kids getting ready to go to college, kind of asking like, how important do you think it is to find a job that makes you feel fulfilled? What does that do for you? Obviously you think it's important based on the story you just told, but like, what is it about that why is that important, do you think?
I think it's important on a multitude of levels. And some people more so than others it might impact. It just depends on what drives you as a person. I am competitive by nature, so sales has always worked for me in the sense of, yes, I want to make money, but I'm competitive. I want to feel like I'm winning, like I'm having success, and that's part of success, right? The other part of it that, does impact the way I am as a person is, do you enjoy what you're doing? We spend so many hours of our lives working. Do you enjoy it? Do you feel fulfilled? Are you making a difference? Are you helping people? I would say if you can accomplish finding a position or a career and you enjoy what you're doing and you feel like you're making a difference and you're helping people, if you can accomplish those two things, the financial stability will come. So I would say, and it's so easy to fall into this, when you graduate, it's all about the money, right? I got to make money. Where I'd almost, give some advice to say, find something that you enjoy, that you love, and you feel good about, and the money will come. And that's so hard to realize at that young age.
without a doubt. But I think that's excellent advice. I mean, it's also the time where and look, this is in some ways almost a very privileged statement. Not everyone, some people need to make that money the minute they get out of college, and I appreciate that, definitely.
Yeah.
But of all the time in your life where you cannot have a ton of money and just still
figure it out,
be fine, 20 to 28, depending on who you are, 20, that's the time, right? Like, this is the time where you should be exploring and going for it. I know that, I've thought about this a lot, actually, is, kids come, to call them kids sound, I guess I'm old enough I could say kids now. You 22-year-old kids. But kids coming out of college, like, if I could see them like, all right, I need to make money. They're looking around. Maybe they have that same kind of competitive, I don't want to sit at, like, I don't want to do a 9 to 5%. Well, I don't want to do a cubicle type, like, go in, like, I want to kind of create my own path. I want to go for it. So maybe they start thinking about, loan origination or real estate or something, especially with how hot the market's been. Mm-hmm. And then I could see the other side of it. I could see them going, well, we're at the peak of the market. I don't want to get in now. Do you think, like, which line of thinking do you think it makes the most sense? Is now a good time to become a loan originator?
I love this question. So, anything in life, you can argue pro or con. Anything in life, right? And when I was getting into the industry, many people said, "Oh, Jennifer, don't do that. The rates are high right now. It's not a good time. You're gonna struggle. That position, straight commission. It's so you can always argue at any market. It's good. It's a good time to get in. It's a bad time to get in. You could say it's a good time to get in because rates are still relatively low and the market is hot. Or you could say, no, it's a horrible, like you alluded to, because it's only going to go. So I don't think that's like a yes or no answer as far as is it a good time. I think no matter what career you choose, whether it's loan origination, real estate, insurance sales, whatever it is, it's what you're willing to put into it. Any sales position, it's a lot of hard work. You're essentially building your own business through an umbrella. So, if you're willing to put the time and effort in, every market ebbs and flows. But are you the hard worker that's going to adjust, adapt, and do whatever you need to do to have continued longevity of success? So it's just a matter of, where that person is in their life and, what risks they can take on and how committed they are. Because again, if you love what you do, you're committed to it, you're willing to put in the effort, no matter what the market does, you're going to have success. You just have to be willing to adapt with it.
That's excellent advice. And I also think that we are heading, I think there's so much more entrepreneurship currently than ever before, and I think there's a lot of reasons, many of which I'm not educated enough to even speak on.
But I have the same feeling.
And I think that this coming, every older generation has looked at the younger generation and gone, that generation,
crazy. Yeah.
But I do think that, like, this, whatever, I'm technically a millennial, whatever is underneath a millennial, like, our understand branding, understand social media, understand gig work, understand, a lot of things that if it's like, so it's just been interesting. There's been a couple people, I've only been in the mortgage industry for a short period of time now, but there have been already people like at holidays and things like that I'm talking to, they're like, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out like what I want to do in terms of like, making money and whatever. And I'm like, well, have you ever heard of this? Have you heard of like loan origination? And they're like, no, like what it, and I heard someone say this like, oh, that's like math. Like I got to do a lot of math. I was like, my understanding is it's not a crazy amount of math. I don't know for sure. So look into it. I was like, but, I just kind of explained like in a way, if you're 22 years old, you're still living at home, you know, you don't have a ton of responsibility, you're kind of in the perfect situation to dive into,
Perfect
you know, an industry like
situation.
this, or
You
any
don't have a lot
entrepreneurial.
of financial responsibility at that time. You have a safety net, so to speak. So it's a perfect time.
How important do you think mentorship is for your success, and then also the success of, you know, what is your relationship to, you know, at this point you run a very successful, you know, business. You know, how important is mentorship to you, do you think?
Mentorship is very important. So through my career, I've worked at different companies. I've worked for mortgage lenders, brokers, um, and when I look back and I say, you know, what was my turning point or jump off point, so to speak? It was when I was with an organization that had a lot of loan officers that originated quite a bit more than I did, had more success, and their willingness to share ideas and, you know, call them up and pick their brain about this idea or that idea or what works for them or how did they become more efficient in their process so that they had more free time to go out and get more business. Because it's a struggle when you start to have success. It takes more time and you have to evolve your process, become more efficient. You might have to hire some people to build out a team. And that's true with any, you know, any industry. So I think mentorship is critical.
I
Having
think
that go-to person or group of people that want to see you succeed, believe in you, will encourage you because you have step forwards and step backs, um, and step back and you just they cheer you on and they're willing to share, you know, because someone has always been there before you. So you just have to find that person that's gonna, you know, guide you and really encourage you and share their ideas.
and I think those people exist and are much more, people are very generous with their time if they feel like they're investing in something, even if it's not something they're going to get like personal rewards from. Like I think there's a misconception of like, well, I don't want to bother this person, or I don't want to, or oh, we're both in sales, like I, you know, it's cutthroat, like we're, and it's like no, from my experience, that is just not how it is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sales is competitive without a doubt, but it's not the best I can. I've always said there's a real problem in a lot of like acting circles with actors that don't know better, where it's like very like, you know, especially like teenage, like especially if it's like a high school acting program or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, a lot of stabbing in the back and blah blah blah, and it's like you're wrong. Like it acting is competitive, but it's not competitive in a one-on-one. It's just a difficult industry. So
Right.
it does, you know, taking out a competitor does not really move you closer to the role, right? Like there's
Right.
so much luck, there's so much out of your control, and I feel like sales is like that. You know, is I've come to realize. I started off freelance digital marketing, and then running my own like small company, and you know, some of the best advice I ever got, some of the biggest boosts up, some of the like first clients I ever got were from other marketing companies, right? You would think like, no, that's the last person that would ever give you good advice. It's like, no, that they know what it's like. They've been down this path. So my advice to anyone in any industry is find some people that, you know what you're about to go through and get as much advice from them as possible.
Absolutely.
So I think that's awesome. I really think that's great. I would love to know and you've been so generous with your, speaking of generous with your time, you've been extremely generous with yours. My last question for you is just, can you just give me a little bit on what this last like 18 months has been like and what you see for 2022?
Sure. So, the last 18 months, if I had to just think of a word off the top of my head, intense. Um, Long hours, intense. I last year, 2020, was, we all experienced a lot of volatility with regard to health and COVID and all of this. But rates dropped due to that. And so the industry, my industry, was very busy. And now rates are starting to creep up a little bit. Nothing significant, but creep up from where they were. And so I say intense because we're still very busy, but there's also challenges that we're faced with for the unfortunate people that were laid off or, had some job instability. And when getting approved for a loan, that can be really challenging. So it's intense that it's harder to get people approved than it once was due to COVID. We also, I speak for Pittsburgh, but I'm pretty sure it's a nationwide issue, lack of inventory. So that makes our jobs that much harder and intense because you don't have the leisure of time. When I say lack of inventory, we're seeing multiple offers on a lot of homes where 6, 7, 8, 10 people are offering on one home, and you have to move quickly, and you have to, it's again that adapting, right? The changing. You have to be able to close quickly maybe to win a bid. You have to be able to streamline something to win a bid. You have to be able to get creative with the financing and the waivers of inspections or appraisal contingency potentially to win a bid. So it's just intense. It went intense from, a huge funnel of business coming your way for the decrease in rates. It's intense because we have low inventory and we have a large buyer pool, and you have to get creative. You have to move quickly to help your client win a bid. So that's what I described for the last 18 months. A lot of work and intense. Also, like in the future, there's been a lot of different opinions on what's going to happen, and no one has that crystal ball. If only we did. I've heard people say, oh, the housing prices are going to crash again. It's going to be 2008 all over again. And I personally severely disagree with that. I do think, yes, prices have gone up, simple economics, supply and demand. And I think they might stabilize, but I don't foresee like a market crash and property values plummeting. Checks and balances are in place, appraisals, determining fair market value based off data. So I foresee rates continuing to increase little by little, and property prices stabilizing. So if I look at it from that perspective, I feel like now is a good time to buy because the rates are still lower and the property values aren't going to go down. There's a lot of people saying, well, I'm going to wait until the property values come back down. I don't think they're going to come back down. I just think they're going to stabilize, but then the rates are going to slowly start to tick up. So that's how I feel about the future and what the last 18 months was.
And obviously, like you said, no one knows, right? But no one has a crystal ball. But I think everything you're saying is sound. I read a ton on this topic for my position, what I do, and it just seems like that's sort of the consensus. So I agree with you. I also think, I know a lot of people are refinancing right now and using it to get out of like higher interest debt and things like that.
Right. Yep.
So which is like anyone that's had a big credit card debt or anything knows, that could be a life changer. So
yeah, we're also seeing, you trap people in their homes for long periods of time, and they make a decision to improve, expand, or move on from that home. So that generates purchase, it generates refinance to get cash out to put in a pool because they were stuck at their house all summer or whatever the situation was.
I imagine. I think everyone had a nice long time to look around their house going like, I really got to do something about this. I know. My wife and I had a list, like, quite a few projects long of like, we need to finish the basement, things like that. So
We need more room. We need a second office because now we're both working from home.
Oh, I know, absolutely. Well, Jennifer, first of all, this has been such a pleasure, and I think a really just a very well thought out and like knowledgeable conversation that I'm excited for people to hear, because I think there's a lot of important stuff here. Tell me, where are you licensed?
I am currently licensed in the state of Pennsylvania as well as Florida.
Okay, so if you're looking for a home or a refinance or anything in Pennsylvania or Florida, and especially if you're in Pittsburgh, if you're around Pittsburgh and you're not working with Jennifer Burnett, then I don't know what you're doing. I don't, you gotta, they can find you. So one of the places they can find you is at your website, jenniferburnett.princetonmortgage.com. So Jennifer spelled Jennifer. Burnett is BURNETT.princetonmortgage.com. Where else can they find you, Jennifer?
On my cell phone, they can text or call me anytime, 412-926-3740, or they can drop me an email at jburnett@princetonmortgage.com.
Look at that. You don't even forget the website. You can just text her and go, "Hi, I'd like a pre-approval. Let's talk." That's amazing. And
that happens.
And honestly, too, you're we talked about generous with our time. I know that you're very generous in terms of, like, if you have questions, if real estate agents, if you're looking for more information to help your clients. I know that you spend a lot of your time helping people and answering questions like that. So
Absolutely.
So anything that you need, I highly recommend talking with Jennifer. Jennifer, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate the invite.